Hey, it's Dave. So in this video, I'm going to rant on this idea that parenting should be this authoritative experience, that parents need to lay down a system of rules and punishments, and that kind of is the foundation of parenting. And I want to share and argue that I think that is actually counterproductive to what kids generally most need, which is more of a nurturing, caring, helping, more of a coaching perspective and angle. All right, so let's talk about this traditional view of parenting first. So oftentimes parents are given the advice that they need to be strong and assertive and authoritative. They need to have a system of rules and not let their kids break these rules, and they really need the kids to be in line. And across the board, you can see in many parenting books and systems, right, this approach of a top-down approach, and the parents are on top and the kids need to basically follow the system of rules that the parents put down. I think this typical traditional view of parenting actually is counterproductive to, I think, the real end goals of parenting. So what is parenting? What are we trying to do as parents? I think the end goal is we're trying to raise mature, wise, independent humans, men and women, who know how to make strong decisions, who know how to make the right decisions, who are confident in what they believe, who know what they're doing, what they want, where they go. They treat people with respect. And we're talking about people that aren't necessarily like just passively pushed around, right? Driven by the crowd and whatever is cool or hip at this moment. Rather, they're independent thinkers, right? They're really looking beyond just the shallow things that are in culture, but they have a stronger sense of purpose and belief. That's my kind of view of the goal or the mission of parenting. Now, in order to reach that or to push our kids toward that goal, it can make sense, and parents can be tempted to think, oh, I need to be strict and have a system of rules so that my kids can go in the direction I want them to go. However, I think this is deceiving and it's a trick. And let me explain. So, when you set up a system of rules and punishments, in a way, you're setting up a crutch for the child. In a way, you're telling your kid and your child that you don't think that they can make the right decisions on their own. And because of that, you're going to tell them that they have to obey these certain rules. And by obeying these certain rules, it's going to help them to make the right decision. However, I think the essence of true wise decision making is not making decisions based upon the rules of some system. Rather, it's really diving into the deep consequences of our decisions, the consequences toward us, the consequences toward other people around us in the world, and also actually looking at those consequences from various time frames. And through that type of angle, we're able to come up with truly wise decisions that are beneficial to us and to others. And that's why a system of rules is insufficient and inadequate, because it doesn't teach that. It doesn't teach how to make the right decisions. It just teaches rely on and depend on this and be scared of breaking the rules, or else you'll get punished. And I understand the so-called practical need that parents feel for rules and for punishment. For example, you have kids that are running around screaming, shouting, fighting, doing all this crazy stuff, and you think that rules and punishment are going to be the only thing that's going to stop them and bring order to your house. Now, I get that. However, there's a weakness to using that tool of rules and punishment. And if you're going to use that angle, then I think you need to understand the weaknesses and the cons of using that as well. So in order to kind of fully, I guess, unravel this, we need to look at the other alternative. Now, this other alternative is not, I think, presented clearly or persuasively in most places or circles. And the alternative, I think, is coming alongside your child as a mentor, as a coach, as a true helper, as someone that they could really feel comfortable with, that they don't have to be scared that this person is going to turn into the scary authoritative figure and, punish them, all this stuff. Rather, your child has this fearlessness towards you because they trust you as their coach. They trust you as someone that's going to help them to try to make decisions to the best of their interests. Someone might ask and say, hey, can I do both? Can I be kind of like this authoritative parent figure, with rules and systems, and be this coach and mentor and loving, nurturing person that comes along their side? And I would say it's extremely, extremely difficult to do both. And I don't even know how it's possible. I mean, I think maybe it's possible, but I just don't see that in my realm and my kind of worldview of parenting, that's even like a real likelihood of happening. I think those two values and approaches of being an authoritative, kind of rule enforcing parent, and being a nurturing, mentoring, coaching person to come alongside, I think they're almost antithetical to each other, meaning they don't really coexist. I think one tries to sabotage the other. And I think a lot of parents that are in this have this image or this idea that both can coexist, but actually both are truly suffering. And what really suffers in the end, I think, is the nurturing, the mentoring, the coaching, the coming alongside, where the kids feel completely fearless and trusting of their parents, because the parents think that they can add in and really have an authoritative rule system based parenting as well. So in my experience, and I'll share kind of what happened with my kids. So my oldest is 10 years old, and when my first child was born, I had this idea of, what if I could parent without rules, without punishment? What if I could just come alongside my child and be a true friend, a true mentor, a true coach? What if I could just come alongside and help them make decisions that they need to make, but shed light and be with them all along the way? What if there wasn't any fear or mistrust or them being scared that they're going to break a law and then be punished? What if I just got rid of the whole idea of punishment and rules from our household and from our relationship? What would happen? So this is kind of like an unproven theory. I felt like it was something that was possible, and if done right, it could be a truly liberating experience for myself and my kid that could have just decades and decades of impact, but also perhaps generations of impact, because I felt it had a truly just profoundly huge potential. I think a lot of the background behind some of these ideas came from my own upbringing as a child. I had a very authoritative house I was brought up into. I was constantly in fear of being, I guess, punished or being caught. And we had these rules, but the rules in our house were just constantly changing. It was like so subjective. They weren't really laid out very clearly. Also, the way the punishment was rolled out was very subjective and it was very harsh. And I think that had a big detrimental impact on my relationship with my parents growing up, or I couldn't view them out of like complete trust and fearlessness. Rather, I was clouded with a lot of fear and mistrust and just wanting to stay away from my parents because it was a scary experience to be around them. And I saw the detrimental impact of their actions and that authoritative background or authoritative household on my own relationships, on my own confidence, in my own journey toward maturity. I think I really caught on very early on that this just wasn't the right way. There's got to be a better way of going about it. So fast forward to when my first son was born, and I started to really crystallize these ideas and come up with a more comprehensive kind of approach to parenting, where I'm like, hey, let's try it. Let's try not being an authoritative parent, but let's go to an extreme. Let's try actually not having rules, not having punishment, and let's just come alongside as a friend, a helper, and coach, and really just walk alongside my son and see what wisdom can help with, see what objectivity, see what concern and nurture can do. And at first I was a bit skeptical. My wife was skeptical too. In fact, she was actually resistant at first, and it took me many months of talking and really assuring her that this was, I thought, the best way for her to be on board. But what ended up happening was truly remarkable. Because we didn't start with an authoritative system, we didn't have rules and punishment, my relationship with my son became just so pure and just so close. Like there wasn't any fear between us. There wasn't any commanding and authoritating over my child, or from him this like resistance. It was just so awesome to have a kid where you could bond on this just super close level that was almost in a way beyond what I could even express or imagine. And it was great. The first year I was like, amazing. First 2 years, 3 years. And the crazy thing is this has just progressed over time, where because we don't have a system of rules and punishment, there isn't this fear on his part where he might think that I'm going to punish him for breaking certain rules or doing something wrong. Rather, there's just this trust. It's this pure trust and this absence of fear. And it's taken a lot of work over the years to not have an approach, not to have rules and punishment, rather to guide and to mentor from a very hands-on perspective, to really be there for him and with him, and to walk this life together, and to really come alongside like a true friend, a true helper, a true coach, and for him to just feel so comfortable with that, where there isn't this distance of that typically people feel with authority figures. And I think this has completely revolutionized my life, where it's just parenting is like 100 times, a million times better than I ever expected it could be, because the quality of the relationship with my kids is just so awesome and so pure, where I just feel so close to them because they also feel so close to me. Right? There isn't that fear or things blocking. There isn't a whole history of different punishments I've laid down on them, or experiences of them breaking the law and all this stuff happening. We just don't have that type of history, and because of that, it's like there's such a freedom that my kids have around me and my wife, and that freedom is just so awesome to see. It's just when we are together, there's nothing, I guess, holding us back from each other, and that type of relationship was only something that I could have just dreamed of or imagined when I started this journey. But now that it's coming to fruition, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like the fruit and the benefits of parenting without rules, but rather coming alongside and really coaching and mentoring, it's just immense. It's just crazy. I think the biggest, I guess, challenge with this is that it doesn't happen naturally. For example, if you parent without rules and without punishment, then you're going to have a void, meaning this absenteeism where you're not there for your kid. And that's not what I'm advocating at all, by all means. And some parents would say, yeah, I don't want my kids to just do whatever they want to do. They'll just get into huge trouble. They'll become terrible people. I'd rather have a system of rules and punishment so I know my kids aren't becoming like, crazy, whatever. However, there's a better alternative. In my view, it's not absentee parenting where you're saying, oh, I'm not going to have rules and punishments. I'm just going to free range my kids and let them do whatever they want. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I think kids really do need a lot of attention. They need a lot of guidance. They need a lot of coaching. They're in such a impressionable age, especially when they're young. And there's so much that we could teach and help our kids with. And so one of the things that I think is crucial that parents should direct their attention to, let's say, away from the rules and the punishment and into more of an investing mentality. Investing mentality is you're seeding seeds into your kids' mind and their perspectives to bear the fruit of good consequences in the future, right? Benefits. And a lot of that is going to be how they think about situations, how they think about habits, how they think about actions, what kind of consequences are the result, right, of continued actions. What I mean by it's kind of a world view where, for example, one kid might think, yeah, I'll do whatever I want. It doesn't matter, to whoever, as long as I feel like to do it, I'm just going to do it. Right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to plant enough perspective and wisdom of cause and effect, of consequences to actions, of relationships, of the interconnection of our actions toward ourselves and other people, where our kids' perspectives and worldview are mature, meaning they grow in maturity and they're able to make decisions that are far beyond their years because they're able to see the trajectory of what happens with certain decisions and certain habits. So more specifically, for example, if a kid is, for example, doesn't regard other kids and just, I guess, bullies their way around, right? You can try to attack the situation by saying, hey, you can't do that. If you do that again, we'll ground you, we'll spank you, we'll take away this, your Nintendo Switch, we'll do this, all this stuff. You can't see your friends, all this stuff. And what does the kid really learn in that situation? They learn that if they break a certain law, that they might get certain punishments. But I don't know if that really teaches the foundational, fundamental worldview and value perspectives that the kid needs to really change course in a substantial way. I mean, they might change course because they're trying to avoid punishment, but I don't know if that truly changes character. And it might be worth it if that's the only thing you could do to change course. But I think a better way is to invest the time and energy to go deep into the core foundational perspectives that the kid has regarding others themselves, to see how actions lead to certain results, and to help kids form an understanding across multiple time frames of what happens when you put into action certain habits and certain courses of actions. So this is, I think, the key thing, where it's the opposite, I think, of absentee parenting, where it needs to be very, very present, because it's a much more deeper way of parenting. You're really parenting into their psyche and worldview and values and perspective. You're seeding wisdom and understanding of what happens in this world, how things work. I think that's one of the most important things we could do, like how the world works, right? What happens when you do X? What happens when you do Y constantly? What's the trajectory? And kids need to have that help to understand and navigate this world. It just doesn't come naturally because we leave our kids alone and they figure it out. No, when you leave your kids alone, you're at the mercy of their friends, right? You're at the mercy of whatever teacher or school what they're teaching. You're at the mercy of media and TV or whatever they're saying. And hey, maybe there's a chance that the kids will turn out, in a decent way, maybe. But hey, there's a big chance that they'll turn out the way that all these other people are telling them to do things. For example, they'll adopt the views of others. In the bigger picture of things, like as a parent, how my kids turn out in terms of their character and perspective and their wisdom and their decision making is, in a sense, going to be my biggest legacy. It's going to be my biggest investment and my biggest investment returns, all included, meaning you take finances and education and career and all this other stuff that, let's say I invest all this time and energy into. By far, I believe my biggest investment and returns are going to be with my kids, because they not just outlive me, but they're passing on, right, these values, these thoughts, not just to their kids, but to other people around them and to other generations. So in a lot of sense, I think, and this is my perspective, that the greatest thing I could do is to really take parenting seriously, to see if I can have a fantastic relationship with my kid, to see if I can plant just seeds that grow 100,000, a million times, to really see if like I could cultivate and nurture wisdom and understanding with my kids, to if I can play a pivotal role in them becoming confident, independent, strong thinkers, strong people who have strong beliefs and who know how to make great decisions, who know how to help other people, who know how to be effective in this world. And those are the things that, I'm focused on with parenting. And I don't think it comes from, having an authoritative parenting figure or system. I just don't think rules and punishment really teach that. And I think it's actually counterproductive, because it's just probably going to seed fear and distance between you and your child. But you don't want that, because in order to really invest into your kids, that's like the enemies. Fear and distance between you and your kid is going to prevent you from being able to seed the wisdom, maturity, and understanding that they need. Like, they need to trust. Here's the thing. It's like with all learning, there needs to be a trust, a relaxation, an acceptance, right, of the new principles and ideas. But when you have fear, you have constriction, and there's not much opening to learning. I think that's something similar with parenting and with children. Is kids are not going to adopt, I think, wisdom and understanding from their parents when there's this fear of seeing their parents as an authoritative figure with rules and punishment. But if you can start from scratch and have a foundation where you toss the rules, you toss the punishment, and you build a loving relationship, a kind relationship, a helping relationship, where your kid just welcomes you into their life and they're excited to see you every day, to hang out with you, to talk with you. They jump on your lap and they just converse, and it's just a joy for them, right, to live life with you, and you're there to nurture and to coach, and there isn't fear of enforcement and laws and rules and all this stuff. Rather, there's a freedom, and I think that's the best environment for the kids to absorb and to learn. And that's the thing. Like, parenting is hard enough in of itself. We don't need to introduce things that will sabotage the planting of seeds of wisdom and understanding to our kids. Like, we don't need, I think, rules and punishments and all this stuff to seed the fear, which is going to just be a huge backlash to what we're trying to do as parents. Rather, we need the best chances that we can have to instill, to build wisdom and understanding in our kids. I think the best chances we have are a foundation of trust, a foundation of love, a foundation of intimacy. And that's going to, I think, lead us to the best chances where we could really invest into our kids. Now, I'm not saying it's guaranteed. Just by throwing out the rules and punishment, it's not guaranteed by any means that you're going to invest and seed wisdom and understanding to your kids. Rather, it's the prerequisite in some ways, I think, where it gives you a chance to have that close relationship, a chance to really put in the time and the effort and really build in those perspectives and values with your child. All right. Anyways, I don't think this is the only thing for parenting that is essential. I think there's a lot of various things that are important, but I think this is one of the foundational things that I think is pretty crucial. Go ahead and feel free to ask any questions in the comments. Check out my other videos on parenting that I have on this channel. I tackle this topic, but also other topics from different angles. So oftentimes it takes different ways to look at things to really get a better understanding or grasp on it. So go ahead and take a look at some of the other videos, and yeah, we'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks.